When you look at the pantheon of violent attacks that have been taking place in our country, it's been going on for months now, against our Jewish brothers and sisters, against private companies like Tesla, against federal law enforcement, and against our friend Charlie, against anyone who tries to stop them from tearing down America and tearing down Western civilization. Their message is pretty clear. Shut up, or we will shut you up. But when they tell you to shut up, when they begin to talk over you, it's because they're losing the argument. When they try to silence you, it's because they know they cannot beat your ideas with their own. And when they resort to violence, it's because they've already lost. And in defense of our values, of our views, of our faith, of what we all in this room know to be right and true, we cannot be anything other than relentless. I'm going to go ahead and ask, surely there's at least a handful of CNN viewers in here. We're off the record in here. There's a hand. There's 3 hands. Thank you for tripling our audience. We're very appreciative. It is really an honor to be with you here. If you've seen these debates on CNN, you know that I'm normally operating under a strict 7-second rule before someone tries to interrupt me. So to have a full runway this evening feels a little dangerous, I'm going to be honest with you. We'll see what happens. A lot of people ask me, Scott, why do you willingly check yourself into an insane asylum every night? To see if I can escape. It's very obvious. It is a privilege, actually, to be what the British tabloid media has taken to calling me, which is the black sheep of CNN. The thing about being the black sheep of something is no one expects you to graze quietly. And so for as long as I have been called to be a pilgrim in an unholy land, I will pledge to you to do the most American thing that you can do. Debate and argue. I will argue for middle America. I will argue for rural America. I will argue for Christian conservative values. I will argue for normalcy. And I will argue for common sense. On that, you have my word. It's a great pleasure to be here with a lot of friends, including Senator John Husted. I know everybody in this room knows this. It is vital that he goes back to the United States Senate, and we are going to make it happen in the state of Ohio. And to be here with Dave Yost, who I've known for a long time now. Long enough for you to grow a gray beard. We worked on a lot of things together over the years. When I think about politics, I think about the people that you encounter who are in it, and I don't think I've ever met anybody who, like Dave Yost, he's like the exact person you want in politics. Dave, thank you for all your service to the state of Ohio. And to Aaron, thank you for your remarks and your invitation. Truly a gifted communicator. Always nice to meet a fellow debater, somebody who's out there taking on the slings and arrows from the left. So you've got a great leader, Aaron Bear, really terrific. And the most interesting thing I've learned tonight is that you all own the Columbus Dispatch building. You literally owned the fake news. I love it. As was mentioned, I wrote a book last year called A Revolution of Common Sense, which I took from something that President Trump said in his inaugural last January. I was sitting on the set at CNN, and the President said, "We're going to have a revolution of common sense." And I turned to Van Jones and I said, "That would make a great book title." And he said, "Please don't." So I did. And I made an appointment to go see the president, who truthfully I didn't know, really. And I went to the Oval Office, and I went in there, and he was at the Resolute desk, and the cabinet was in there, and A lot of the senior staff of the White House were in there, and he looked up from the Resolute desk and he said, "You look terrific. I mean, you look good on TV, but you actually look terrific. Now have a seat next to the other Scott." Bessant, the Treasury Secretary. So I sit down and the president says, "Does everybody here know Scott? He is like our best guy. He knows how to defend me without getting fired by CNN, which is no small talent." And then he said, "To be honest, Scott used to be a little bit average. But then I came along and now he's terrific." About halfway through writing the book, and he was very generous. I got to hang around the Oval Office, and I flew to Michigan with him on Air Force One and got to really see how he's doing things. But about halfway through, I didn't know what to put on the cover, so I sent, the publisher mocked up 3 ideas. We sent them over. I got a 3-word email back from Caroline Leavitt. He hates it. So I sent him a message. What's the favorite picture of yourself from the first 100 days? That's what the book is about. And so if you've got a copy of it or if you've seen it, that is President Trump's favorite picture of himself from the first 100 days. The night before the book hit bookstores, I went to the Oval Office and I had the copy, his copy. And I said, "As promised, I'm delivering this by Christmas." And he looked at the book and he said, "This is the greatest cover of a book that's ever been written. No one will read your book. They'll only want it for the cover." I said, "Well, I worked really hard on it." But the story of the book is very simple. When you're a Republican president, there are 4 colluding interests in Washington that work together to overwhelm you: media, bureaucrats, Democrats, and activist judges. And I think in the first term, to some degree, they succeeded in overwhelming a Republican presidency. But the decision was made this time. We are not going to be overwhelmed. We are going to overwhelm them. And that is exactly what he has delivered to the United States of America. It's an honor to be in this room with fellow Christian conservatives who do more than just talk. As has been mentioned, you find ways to turn the abstract into the actionable, which is a big deal right now because all across this country we're being told that our values are out of vogue, that free markets don't work, that limited government is outdated, that the only answer to our problems is more government, more progressive radicalism. And we're faced with a political opposition that is more comfortable with socialism than capitalism. And they're all too happy to try to banish every single one of us from the public square. And from where I sit, because of this fight, it makes you all one of the most important forces in the country right now. Because I don't think we're just debating policy anymore. This is all about our way of life. It is about the survival of our civilization, at least as we have known it. And that's what I want to talk to you about this evening. Our mutual calling. It is my belief that whether you know it or not, everyone in this room is fighting for the survival of Western civilization. Now, I've been in politics now for over half my life, 26 years, and I've seen a lot of things. Candidates have come and gone. The issues of the day have changed. And goodness knows our opponents have changed. We now face the most radical, anti-American opposition that any of us could have imagined. It's scary to me, actually, just how much the liberal movement in this country has been hijacked by the enemies of the West, by those who believe the American founding to be rotten at its core, and that it should be ripped out root and branch. And because of that, our politics now is really about a fight to save the West. And in this fight, we cannot cede any ground. Not in politics, not in business, not in culture, not in education, and certainly not in my arena, which is the media. There is a clash of civilizations occurring right now. Ours is better, and we have to do everything we can to fight for it and defend it and save it. And that's what this organization is all about. To say that we're defending Western civilization is to say that we're standing up for the values that built the free world: faith, reason, liberty, and the inherent worth of every human being, born and unborn. The West is not a place on a map. It is a set of ideas born in Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome, and carried forward by generations of people who believed in truth, individual responsibility, and the rule of law. It is the civilization that produced the Bible, the university, and the Constitution. And it taught us that freedom is sacred because it comes from God and not from government. To defend the West is to defend the right to speak freely, to worship freely, to raise our families in peace, and to live by moral conviction rather than by mob coercion. Our movement, our voices, everyone in this room, we make up a community, one of the last remaining in America that is unapologetically dedicated to preserving and passing down the moral and spiritual inheritance of the West. No, we are not arguing about politics as usual anymore. We are fighting for the soul of this nation and the survival of our civilization. And this is what keeps me up at night, that we are watching the basics of our society come under constant attack. The radical left, the enemies of the West, are going after anyone who builds anything, who believes anything, or stands for anything. Already this year, on the streets of Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and other American cities, we've seen radicals, angry mobs, making clear that nothing short of violent confrontation and mayhem will satisfy them. Why? Because they wish to exist in a state of secession from our union, maybe, but certainly from Western civilization. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, the biggest buffoon in American politics, referred to what was happening there as the new Fort Sumter. I guess Democrats, Dave, haven't changed all that much since the 1850s. But they don't believe in the Union. They don't believe in our national borders. They don't believe in our national laws. They don't believe in any sort of legal or moral order. And to enforce this anti-American, anti-Western worldview, they are comfortable unleashing legions of political vigilantes into the streets, backed up by news media and cultural celebrities who have blood on their hands. They don't care how many brainwashed people get hurt or die. They are bloodthirsty because they can no longer contain their disdain for the moral contours of Western civilization and American democracy. I think we should stop pretending that this is about legitimate protest. It is well organized and well funded, mostly by the enemies of the West, and certainly by the enemies of the United States of America. This is about nothing less than tearing down the United States itself. What we're seeing in the form of these anti-ICE, anti-law enforcement protests has worn many costumes in recent years. Occupy Wall Street, Free Palestine, and now this all-out assault on federal laws and federal law enforcement. different costumes, but the same anti-American, anti-Western actors performing in the same sick play. And the theme of this tragedy is quite simple. America is bad. Destroy America. I think we have a nullification crisis on our hands. Democrats who want to nullify federal laws because they don't like the president. Judges who want to nullify the constitutional authority of the President of the United States. Juries who want to nullify the rights of crime victims to seek justice against these violent, radical actors. When you look at the pantheon of violent attacks that have been taking place in our country, it's been going on for months. Now, against our Jewish brothers and sisters, against private companies like Tesla, against federal law enforcement, and against our friend Charlie. Against anyone who tries to stop them from tearing down America and tearing down Western civilization. Their message is pretty clear. Shut up, or we will shut you up. But when they tell you to shut up, when they begin to talk over you, it's because they're losing the argument. When they try to silence you, it's because they know they cannot beat your ideas with their own. And when they resort to violence, it's because they've already lost the debate. Now, this center knows how to debate. I saw the article. Headline, they're relentless. And in defense of our values, of our views, of our faith, of what we all in this room know to be right and true, we cannot be anything other than relentless. People ask me all the time, what does the Republican Party or the conservative movement even stand for these days? Hasn't it changed a lot since you came along all those years ago? Sure, there have been some changes. Leaders come and go. They all leave their imprint on our platform. But to me, the answers today are pretty simple. We are the only political party in America that defends the West. We defend it at home, and we are right now defending it abroad. Even as Europe succumbs to an immigration crisis that has crippled its domestic politics and rendered it useless in the fight to save the West. We're the party that knows the difference between men and women. Look what happened at the Supreme Court and in the halls of Congress recently. The smartest minds of the American left were sent to answer two questions. What is a woman? Can a man get pregnant? And not a single one of them could do it. We're the party that thinks American citizens should come before illegal aliens. We believe that being admitted to this country is a privilege and that it should require some assimilation into our culture and acceptance of our legal framework. We're the party that believes in protecting human life in a world that seems to increasingly find it disposable. We're the party that believes in free speech, and as the president has told the world, it's his movement that is the revolution of common sense. Now, as you all know, I'm a strong defender of these values on CNN every night. It rankles some of the other guests, as you might have noticed. Interestingly, people sometimes wonder, do I get along with these people that I work with? Actually, the answer is yes. There's a few of them. We're friends. We open our ears and our hearts to each other before we open our mouths, which is a good rule for punditry, but it's also a good rule for life. And I tend to gravitate to the people who debate in good faith and in good humor. A few still exist. But I do encounter more than a handful who are angry and filled with rage. They can't make a joke or take one. And they use the language of hate. And you all have heard it in this room. They call you racist, fascists, Nazis. You've heard it all. And I think to myself, as we are simply trying to build a coalition of common sense, what is happening to these people? Why are they so angry? It's because they're headed in the exact opposite direction. We represent common sense, and they, for some reason, have taken up the mantle of uncommon nonsense. And I will say out loud what everybody in this room and most everybody in this country knows to be true. They have simply lost their minds. They care more about pronouns than paychecks. They want to put boys in girls' locker rooms. They care more about violent criminals roaming our streets than they do about the victims. Their principal constituency are now illegal aliens more than American citizens, and they are hostile to anyone who believes in the Judeo-Christian underpinnings that anchor our laws and culture. They have become the party of weirdos and scolds, people who think your 5-year-old needs to know more about gender fluidity than phonics. They want to control everything. They want the government making all of the decisions and you making none of them. And if you disagree, as a matter of politics or even as a matter of faith, well, we saw what happened to Charlie. We saw what nearly happened to our president in Butler, Pennsylvania. And today we see the American left promising retribution against anyone who has supported the president, supported law and order, supported the union itself. And make no mistake, they mean it. They will impeach the president if they regain control. And they will punish anyone who's been within 200 feet of him, I can assure you. Something crucial to understand about the left. They hate success. They hate it when people make it on their own. They hate it when you don't need them. Think about what they teach our kids, that America was founded on racism, that our country is rotten, that capitalism is evil, that hard work is for suckers, that merit is a dirty word, that the nuclear family is oppressive, especially to women, that faith is for idiots and rubes from places like Kentucky and Ohio. Is it any wonder that Charlie spent all that time on college campuses? He knew what was happening. He knew what the young people of this country were facing. I've got 4 boys of my own back home in Kentucky. 16, 12, 10, and 8. There's a lot of chaos in the Jennings household. We also have 35 laying hens in the backyard. Anybody have chickens? Oh, yeah. Never get a rooster. That's all I can tell you. We accidentally got one once. They crow all day, and they constantly sexually harass their coworkers. We named our rooster Governor Cuomo. It was a... You should have been there when we impeached the governor. Oh, but we do love it. The chaos. And I think about the future that I want my boys to have. And I don't want them to just grow up in a rich country. I want them to grow up in a good country that believes in the truth, that defends their speech, that celebrates family and the societal blessings and stability that flows from it, where common sense is a virtue and not a vice, where we tell the difference between right and wrong and good and evil, and that we side with civilization over barbarism. And make no mistake, we have seen barbarism of the worst kind in this world over the last couple of years. And what happened in the West? Our media, our politicians, people that ought to know better, sided with the barbarians. It's disgusting. Even today, you get the feeling watching television that there are people who are rooting for bad outcomes for the American military because they're more invested in hating Trump than they are in rooting for America. But this is what we all have to understand, that division amongst ourselves puts the West and America at risk. They are unified. We can do no less. And I'll close with this. There's one more thing that I want for my boys and for all of your children and grandchildren. I want them all to know where our rights come from. They don't come from government. They don't come from the Constitution. They don't come from the Founding Fathers, as much as we love them all. They come from God. Period. Full stop. Now, this used to be obvious to everyone. Now it's controversial. The left wants you to believe that your rights are whatever they say they are. That's so they can take them away so easily. But if your rights come from God, this is something different altogether. No politician can vote them away. No judge can rule them out of order. No mob can shout them down. We answer to a higher power when it comes to our rights. And that's why they're so hostile to faith. It's about power. They need you to believe that they are the highest authority in your life. But we know better. We know there's something above the state, something above politics, something that judges the judges. And when you understand that your rights are God-given, you cannot be intimidated. Sometimes, and tonight, many people in this room have asked me, Scott, how do you do it? How do you sit there with these people? And I often think of Paul's letter to the Ephesians. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the powers of this dark world and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you can stand your ground. I think of it all the time. So thank you for having me here tonight. I want you all to remember that defending the West is not an act of nostalgia. It is an act of stewardship. We are heirs to a legacy purchased by the courage of men and women who came before us and believed that truth was worth defending and that freedom was worth dying for. And to paraphrase the Lion of the West, Winston Churchill, the flame of Christian civilization cannot be extinguished. It may flicker, but it will never go out. Our mission, your mission, is to spread light and truth in a confused world that desperately needs your clarity, into a divided culture that needs your courage, and into a dark age that very much longs for the light. If we remain faithful to God and to the truths that built this great civilization, our best days in the world's are still ahead of us. When it comes to defending the West, failure is not an option. Thank you, Columbus, Ohio. God bless Ohio. God bless the United States of America. Thank you for having me here tonight.